Welcome back to the Ultraviolet Tide. We are here with another exciting episode of the podcast. And today I am joined by Jazmine Corona. Jazmine, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Erica. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited for our conversation.
We're excited too. As we were talking kind of before the episode started, this is a new territory for us to really dive into. So, the topic we are really going to dive into today is why are your labs always normal even when you feel like crap? Which I know sounds like a mouthful, and I know there are so many things that go into that, but we're really going to break it down. But before we do that, I am going to give a brief background into you so everyone can know you and your background a little bit more. So Jazmine Corona is a nutritional therapy practitioner, member of the National Association of Nutrition Professionals, and the CEO and founder of Organically Glow. Organically Glow is a functional nutrition practice helping women break the cycle of inflammation and stress through nutrition, foundational practices, and detoxification. Her focus is really helping women overcome gut issues, brain fog, low energy, painful periods, and anxiety. All those fun things that you never want to deal with, but somehow always seem to find a way into our lives. But Jazmine, I know that is just the tip of the iceberg. So can you tell us a little bit more about your background and about Organically Glow?
I would love to. So, my road to becoming a nutritional therapy practitioner and CEO and founder of Organically Glow has really been a whirlwind of emotions. So, before pivoting from becoming a nurse practitioner to opening up Organically Glow, I was really on my own personal health journey, fighting the odds of autoimmune diseases from the ages of around 14, 15 years old, all the way up to around 20, 21 years old when that is usually honestly, that's when I found the power of nutrition and root cause medicine. So, up until that point, around 20, 21 years old, which I am now 26, just to give some background, but I spent years just stuck in this cycle of going appointment to appointment with a growing list of symptoms. Started off with the low energy, then it turned into gut issues, then it turned into joint pain, depression, skin issues, and the symptoms just kept on coming back. And I had no idea what was going on. I kept going to all these specialists, all these doctors, and no one could really give me answers. They would just kind of, look at my blood work, look at all the tests I was focused on and was completing. And they would just say, oh, well, like everything looks fine. Like, you must be good,
Mhm.
like there's nothing wrong that we can see. So
Mhm.
I would just be, prescribed a new medication and kind of just be sent on my way until I was back again with a new symptom or I had an autoimmune flare. And it really wasn't until I was laying in a hospital bed almost after losing my life, when I made that decision, like this cannot be the rest of my life. This was back in 2019, so I was around the 2021 years old, and like they just kept on telling like this is just normal for you, like this is just how your life is going to be. And just deep down I knew like I could not go on like this. There was just no way. So as I was like laying in that bed, I was just thinking in my brain like there just has to be something else, like I have to be missing something, there has to be a better way, and there was. So like that is exactly why I'm here chatting with you today, because I actually made that decision to search elsewhere because it was time. I had to do that. So that was a
Mhm.
little background on honestly my journey. And this has happened over years. So I
Right.
know I kind of summed it up, but yeah, it was definitely a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I can only imagine. And when I'm hearing you, tell your story about being in the 20, 21 year age range and people are saying, well, this is normal. I hear that story all the time, specifically when it comes to skin cancer too, is sometimes doctors say, well, you're so young, there shouldn't be an issue, things are good. You're young, you're healthy. And you're like, wait, what?
Mhm.
I don't feel right. Like there's something that feels a little bit off. And it's kind of hard to figure out when you're younger, like what exactly that means. Because if you have a whole slew of symptoms, it's hard to know, like you said, what that root cause is and what's really
Mhm.
causing it, especially when you're still trying to learn about like life in general, right?
Yeah, no, honestly, yeah, it's a very difficult age, especially because it is considered to be like super rare, especially, a decade ago. Like it was rare to be so sick at such a young age. And so they just didn't have enough information, and they didn't have really any type of solutions that they can offer. And I always say it's never the doctor's fault, right? Like it's just how our medical system is kind of set up to work, and it's no one's fault. It's just how it is. And so I really wanted to, bring this type of healing and this type of education around like the root cause and holistic nutrition and wellness and lifestyle things to really help people realize like we do have a lot more control than led to believe. And there's so much we can do to even just improve some symptoms, which is honestly so important.
Right. Right. So you yourself dealing with these health concerns. You had this background as a nurse practitioner, so you had an understanding of it. So how did you get from your own personal journey to founding Organically Glow?
Yeah, so like I said, I went through the medical system when I was dealing with all these personal health issues, all these symptoms, and I just kept on hitting like this roadblock. Like no one could give me answers. Was just being prescribed medications after medications, which led to more symptoms. So
Mhm.
I actually just started digging deeper. First thing we do is search on Google. That's
Right.
like the first thing we do. Trying to figure out like, okay, like there has to be something out there. And then my family actually had found a holistic doctor. My grandpa took me to him, and he helped me a lot. So we did, different treatments like IV, vitamin C, high dosing. He actually worked with a lot of cancer patients, and he was seeing honestly like remarkable improvements in their health conditions. So when he like met me, he was like, "You're my youngest patient, like you're super young." And I seen improvements dramatically. And I still kept on, after I would get some treatment done, feel fine for a couple weeks, and then I would be back again sick with the symptoms. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like I was feeling better, like there's something going on here." So then again came across a practitioner, a nutritional therapy practitioner. So that's what kind of led me to become a nutritional therapy practitioner. And she opened my eyes to root cause medicine, which is actually uncovering what was driving your symptoms. And so when we started actually realizing that it had a lot to do with the food I was eating, had a lot to do with all the stress I was under from being a college student,
Right.
from, relationships, like all this stuff kind of compounds on one another. And then she really helped me with the nutrition part. She helped me with functional testing, which I know we're going to talk more about. And she also helped me with like reducing my toxin burden. So
Okay.
that's something we can definitely go into also. Like there's just so many avenues, right? But once I started really supporting my body holistically, that
Mhm.
is when my health completely transformed and my life was changed. So up until that point, I was sick, I was stuck in bed all the time, and then within like 3 to 6 months, had so much energy. My hair was getting thicker, my skin was clearer, and it was just like it was a miracle, honestly. Like in my eyes, I was like, I never thought this would be me again. And so I knew I had to bring this to Western medicine. I was like, they don't know this. Like, they have no idea about nutrition and lifestyle. Like, I want to be able to bring this to the Western medicine. So that's why I went to nursing school to get my master's in nursing and become a nurse practitioner. And that was honestly a whirlwind of emotions too. So I was halfway through my program, and it came to this decision that I had to make was either you need to keep going this route, become a nurse practitioner, and, do the best I can with opening up a holistic practice and whatnot. But there was just no alignment. Like,
Mhm.
there was like no one wanted to hear about nutrition. No one wanted to learn about like lifestyle. They were really just focused on acute care, which is,
Mhm.
totally like we need it. Don't get me wrong, we need acute care. But I just seen so many patients with chronic diseases and children with cancer and just very sick. And they're over here eating tons of sugar and they are stressed out. The parents are stressed out. And I felt like I had so much more to offer, but I couldn't because, we have very kind of like our scope of practice is very limited to what we can
Mhm.
offer. So that's when I made the decision, like, okay, I need to drop out. I need to leave for a couple months. So I took a leave of absence, enrolled into a holistic nutrition program, got my nutritional therapy practitioner certificate, and I was like, okay, we're doing this. Then I opened up my holistic practice, my functional nutrition practice, Organically Glow, and it's been amazing. I have, been able to actually help women with their nutrition, with their supplementation, and really helping them and teaching them how to manage their stress so they're actually able to overcome their symptoms. And
Mhm.
they have seen so many great improvements, which is amazing.
Yeah, that is awesome. And I love that you bring up that there is room for both practices, acute care and functional medicine.
Hmm.
And there is such a great opportunity to kind of use both together. If you have one symptom that can be solved with, medication,
Yeah.
fantastic. But if it can also be solved another way, also fantastic. It's like
Exactly.
the more options you have, the better. It's never going to be a bad thing to have more options to
Hmm.
help your body feel the best that you can. So you really talked about the benefits of that holistic approach and tackling health and wellness issues. But you also have a method that you take your clients through that I wanted to dive into kind of each step and kind of define what happens during that process so people can understand that this isn't really a quick fix. It's not
Yeah.
like receiving a medication and either working or not working. This is something that takes a little bit longer. So, can you
Hmm.
dive into your method a little bit?
Yeah, of course. So I have the OG method, which is the Organically Glow method, and there's four key phases that I walk clients through. So we have nutrition, which is the first phase. We have foundations, which is the second phase. We have detoxification, and then we have the glow up phase. So each of these phases I will definitely break down, but it really takes time, like you said. It is not a quick fix. We are really focused on building sustainable habits that actually turn into your lifestyle. And so it doesn't feel restrictive. It doesn't feel, I don't want to add more stress to someone. So it feels very fluid. And so when it comes to the first step, I love to focus on nutrition just because with living in America, we have lots of access to fast food, ultra processed foods. And ultra processed foods, the problem with them is they lack key nutrients. They lack vitamins, they lack minerals that we actually need for our body to work properly. So if we are constantly eating these ultra processed foods, which actually recently there was a study that 60% of Americans only focus on ultra processed foods. So
Hmm.
that's 60% of our meals are ultra processed foods.
It's
So that's a
crazy,
big portion. So if you think about
right?
that, that means we are depleting all of our nutrients in our body. And then all of a sudden we have these symptoms pop up and we're like, what's going on,
Right.
So it's definitely connected. So when it comes to nutrition first, it's different per person. I really like to focus on bio individuality because we are all
Hmm.
unique. But my like basics is really focusing on reducing the ultra processed foods as much as possible and then increasing your intake of whole foods. So whole foods are those foods that come straight from nature. So those are our meats, our chicken, our eggs, just like our proteins, our healthy fats, so our avocados, our vegetables, our fruits. So things that are basically grown in our soil or in the trees, those are whole foods. So I like to tell clients, especially if they are just starting out, to really just focus on 80% of your meals being the whole foods. And then the other 20%, it's all about balance because,
Hmm.
we're not going to be able to remove all those foods just because we're on the go. We have jobs, we have families. So it's okay. And we want to enjoy ourselves too. So when we go out to eat, like, enjoy yourself. I don't
Right.
want to have any restriction around nutrition because that can turn into something that we don't want, right?
Yep.
So nutrition, just really focusing on 80% of the time, consuming whole foods. And that's
Mhm.
going to really increase your nutrients, your vitamins, your minerals. And we also see lots of improvements in gut issues. We see lots of improvements in energy right away when we just focus on nutrition. So
Mhm.
it's huge.
Yeah,
It's huge.
we always like to say food heals, food is
Mm-hmm.
medicine because your body and okay, before I even dive into that, I love that you
Yeah.
talk about a specialized approach because it is so important to figure out what works best for your
Mm-hmm.
body individually because we're all going to process foods differently. We're all going to live our lives a little bit differently. Like the advice you give maybe for someone who's constantly on the go, like you're not going to tell them always carry around a lunchbox, or if
Yeah.
they're gluten free, you're not going to say, hey, maybe eat something that might inflame your system. So
Yeah.
it is such a specialized thing that it's hard to give like blanket advice because there is no one thing that fits everyone. So I love that you talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I love that you make it very approachable of saying 80% of the time. It doesn't have to be 100%, 80% of the
Yes.
time. And then everything in moderation.
Mm-hmm.
That really plays into the food is fuel, food is
Mm-hmm.
medicine kind of approach. So that's amazing. Okay, that's nutrition. So then
Yes.
foundations.
So foundation. So this is where it gets really juicy. So we have about like four different things that I like to focus on in the foundations. So the main point of the foundation stage is to really, like a house needs a foundation to actually, be able to stand right and not collapse. Our bodies need a solid foundation to start healing. So this is where we start focusing on restoring normal body function and building sustainable habits. And so I like to focus on number one is the nervous system and stress support. Number two
Mhm.
is our gut health and digestion. Number three is blood sugar balancing. And then number four is our sleep. So these build a solid foundation for our body. And so when it comes to like the nervous system, this is where I like to start everyone at, and stress support. They go hand in hand. So when we are constantly, especially now in our society, we are constantly under stress. We are under long-term stress. So there's a
Right.
difference between short-term and long-term. So that long-term stress, if we don't know how to manage that stress, then we have this stress bucket and it starts overflowing. We get
Right.
overwhelmed. We have anxiety. We have depression. We kind of just really deplete our energy storages. So we really want to support our nervous system with different things. We can go out in nature. We can do breath work, meditation. You really have to find what works best for your body. So the nervous system is really key. We really want to shift out of this survival mode, this fight or
Mhm.
flight response, and we want to get into a rest and heal state. That's what I like to call it.
Yeah.
So that includes supporting your stress and managing your stress. And we have to do that daily because we're
Mhm.
exposed to stress daily. So we have to reduce that stress bucket daily too.
Mhm.
And then we go into the gut health. So nervous system really impacts every organ in our body. So after we support the nervous system, we build solid foundation there. We go into gut health. Gut health is connected to so many chronic diseases. It's connected to obesity. It's connected to diabetes. It's connected to insulin resistance. It's connected to everything. Skin health, everything really. And
Right.
so this is why it's so important to really heal our gut. And I like to walk clients through just so many different things, but there's a 4R approach that I like to follow. And so
Mhm.
the first step is really removing gut irritants. So this also plays into nutrition too. So those ultra processed foods, they irritate your gut. So we are going to have to reduce that as much as possible. And then we move into really repairing your gut lining. So repairing
Mhm.
the gut lining is so important because this is where toxins and pathogens are kind of um, kept out of our bloodstream. So we don't want any toxins or pathogens kind of floating around in our body. We want them to exit our body. And so the way to
Right.
do that is to really heal your gut.
Mhm.
So there's 4 phases there. I won't go into all of them, but it's just so important to really restore your gut health and on top of it, your digestion.
Right.
So if you feel sick after eating, or you get super bloated, or you have belly pain, or you have any type of like constipation or diarrhea, these are key signs that we really need to support your gut health and your digestion. Because
Mhm.
if we can't properly break down our food, then that means we can't properly absorb the nutrients from our food. So then
Yep.
that will lead to nutrient deficiencies too. And then after that, we go into blood sugar balancing. So, blood sugar balancing, I feel like it's really trendy right now too. And I'm super happy about that. So, when we have blood sugar issues, our energy crashes in the middle of the day. We have lots of cravings, such as sweets. We want sugar. We want 4 cups of coffee every day just to kind of get us through the day. And that's not normal. That's a blood sugar issue. So we really want to focus on balancing our blood sugar. You can do this by really focusing on your nutrition. So always pairing your carbs with a protein and a fat just to really stabilize that blood sugar spike. Or you can also just take short walks after eating, and that
Mhm.
can balance your blood sugar so much. And when you balance your blood sugar, again, you're going to really help your energy, but you're also going to reduce inflammation in your body. And
Mhm.
inflammation is like at the root of every single disease. So we have to figure out what is actually driving that inflammation. And usually it's blood sugar issues. So that's the next step. It's
Yeah.
insane. It's
Yeah,
really
it is
crazy.
crazy because I feel like more people than you think have those, like the 2 p.m., 3 p.m., like, just
Mhm.
lull. I mean, I know when I was working in a corporate environment, we would always joke about that, like, "Oh, it's a 3 p.m., like, stretch," and everyone was just exhausted, and yeah, I mean, we weren't going for walks after we had our meal. We would
Yeah.
have 20 minutes to shovel down our food to
Yeah.
go into the next meeting, and
Mhm.
I mean, that's a whole nother thing entirely. Like your body getting too
Exactly.
hungry and then eating all at one time and then it hits your
Mhm.
stomach.
Yeah.
Um, but okay, so now detox.
Yes. So now detox. So detoxification is really just about reducing your toxin burden to build back resilience in our body. So we can't really avoid all chemicals, all toxins that we're exposed to, but we can reduce our exposure. So the first
Mhm.
step is minimizing our exposure to environmental toxins. Environmental toxins are really hidden in like our personal care products and our makeup and our cleaning products, and this takes time. So I don't want people to feel super overwhelmed about this. It just starting with one item as it runs out, swapping that to a non-toxic product is going to help you so much. And it's so interesting too, because in the United States, we have to worry more about this just because we have only banned around 11 toxins
Mm.
compared to Europe, who has banned over
Right.
2,000.
Right.
So it's really important, especially those of us who live in America, to really reduce our exposure to these environmental toxins. And then the second piece is really about supporting your natural detoxification system. So this looks like supporting your bowel movement. So if you are
Mhm.
constipated, that means those toxins you are exposed to on the daily that are in our food, in our water, in our air, and in our personal care products, that is just sitting in your body instead of being exiting our body,
Right.
right? So through our bowel
Mhm.
movements, that's where everything is really exit, all our waste, all our toxins. So we have to be using the restroom at least 1 or 2 times daily. Then
Mhm.
we really support our liver. Our liver plays such a huge role in our body. It has over 500 different functions in the body. So that plays a role in detoxification, that plays a role in really balancing our hormones, improving just our natural detoxification system. And then it goes into our kidneys, our lymphatic system, our brain, and then
Mhm.
also our cells. So it's definitely a process, but it's really just about supporting those natural detoxification systems. So then your body can really do its job by itself. We don't have to worry about it. So
Mhm.
that's why I love this two-step process, because we really do focus on, minimizing that exposure, but then we're also upregulating our natural detoxification system.
Even as you're talking through it, you can see how everything affects everything else, right? One thing
Yeah.
leads to another, which leads to another, which it ultimately leads to your brain. So it's
Hmm.
it's one of those crazy things that it's like your body functions as one system, right? Like,
Exactly.
and if one thing is off balance, it can affect other things without you even knowing that there's an issue.
Hmm.
So um it's so important to keep your body moving as it
Oh,
should
yeah,
be.
definitely.
All right, so then the last step, glow up.
Yes, the glow up phase. So, this phase is just all about rebuilding back the body. So, now that we really have focused on nutrition, foundations, we really, supported our natural detoxification system. Now it's really about just making adjustments when our body needs that extra stress support, or maybe we need some extra gut support, or maybe we need to really keep focusing on minimizing our exposure to toxins. That is what this phase is all about. So it's really about learning how to make adjustments to your lifestyle, to your nutrition to support your health and wellness goals. And this is also when we can take it a next step further. When we are dealing with chronic issues, chronic health concerns, these symptoms, this is where I like to really focus on functional lab work. This will
Mhm.
provide us just some deeper insights into what else we need to support, what else your body specifically needs. Maybe, like I said, maybe you need blood sugar support. Now, maybe you need more sleep support. So, like, our body is always changing, and sometimes we need more support, and that's okay.
Right, and I am so happy you started to pivot toward that lab work because I do wanna talk about functional testing and how it can be utilized to help you figure out more about your body. So let's start with kind of defining, like, what are some functional tests that are super popular and what can they help tell you about your overall body functioning?
Yeah, so the first lab work that I like to look at is a functional blood work panel. So
Mhm.
this is similar to the blood work you get done at your medical doctor's office. The only thing that's different is we basically test more markers and we also look at the ranges differently. So, in conventional medicine or Western medicine, the standard lab tests, they are based off of normal reference ranges. And so, those normal reference ranges are based on the average of our population. And in America, 6 out of 10 Americans have at least one chronic disease. So if you think about it, those normal reference ranges are based on a very sick population. And so those reference ranges are, considered normal. But you can still experience symptoms and you could still feel sick without actually being classified as having a disease. So this is
Mhm.
also why a lot of individuals will come to me with a long list of symptoms, right? And their doctor just keeps telling them, like, your labs look good, like, I don't know what's wrong. Maybe you should, go try this out, or maybe you should go try this pill out. And they just are kind of lost for words because they're like, in my body I don't feel good. So, like,
Mhm.
I don't understand, like, why my labs say everything's normal. So this is where functional testing comes in. So the functional blood work, we're actually able to look at smaller reference ranges, and we call those optimal reference ranges. And so
Mhm.
we can pinpoint a lot more. Honestly, years before you get a diagnosis, we can actually see what is happening in the body. So maybe you just, need more vitamins, like B vitamins. I see that a lot in a lot of individuals. Like I said, since our nutrition, our food supply lacks so many key nutrients, we're low in a lot of vitamins. So we can see that on those lab work. And it's so crucial when we want to start really supporting the body before that disease comes on.
Mhm. I love talking about those reference ranges that you were talking about because you hit the nail on the head with what I don't have the skill set to tell people about, but what I've read about a lot is about, those reference points that you're talking about being maybe set on someone who's, like you said, sick, right? So their
Mhm.
ranges are going to be off. And then you're like, well, I still feel sick. What is going on with me? Is it all in my head? What's going on? And for the doctors, they can only work with what they have, right? They're not inside your
Mhm.
body. They don't know how you're feeling and everything. And then the obvious solution would be, okay, maybe it is medicine, maybe it is a medication, which
Yeah.
ties in your experience when you were in your
Hmm.
early 20s about getting medications, but still experiencing these symptoms. You're like, okay, well, something is still really
Hmm.
off. Um, so I think lab work, especially what you're talking about, comes into effect there where, okay, well, I'm not very sick, but I'm definitely not feeling great. So I'd just like
Yeah.
to know for my own sanity what's really going
Hmm.
on.
Exactly. No, exactly. And that is what happens. You know, all my clients who come to me, they have been told that same thing where they're like, my lab work is great, but I don't feel good. And I'm like, I get it. Like I have been there before. And that is why like functional blood work is always like the first piece because usually you already have blood work done within the last 3 months. And so I can look that over, look at functional ranges and be like, yeah, like it's not all in your head. Like there
Hmm.
is something going on and like we just, add this supplement or you change your nutrition a little bit and you could be okay. And so that is what's so critical with holistic wellness and holistic health because we are able to really just add on to Western medicine and conventional medicine, especially when they don't know what's wrong. That's where we come in and we kind of close that gap between
Hmm.
you actually, having a disease eventually or you actually going the other route and having optimal health, which I mean,
Hmm.
that's what we all want. And so
Right.
that's what we all deserve. So
Right.
that's the first functional lab I like to look at.
Hmm.
When it becomes a little bit more, chronic, I would say, like the symptoms are a little more severe and they're more, pinpointing to like the gut, for say, example. Then I like to run a GI map. So the GI map is another functional lab test, and this is really looking at your gut microbiome. And so we're able to really see how your digestion is doing. We are looking at how your gut microbes, so like different bacteria in your stomach, how those are measuring up. And if they're imbalanced, that can really contribute to a lot of symptoms and a lot of digestive issues. And on top of that, even acne, skin issues. So, like, these all go back to the gut health. And then that's just another one. So, the GI map. Or I also like to run a Dutch test. Dutch
Okay.
test is looking at your hormones, especially for women. Our hormones, it looks at our adrenals. So that's where really our stress happens. That's where how we respond to stress. And so when we run that Dutch test, we're able to see your estrogen levels, your progesterone levels, your cortisol levels. And these are so important when it comes to inflammation in the body. And especially as women, when we have painful periods, when we're missing a period, when we have infertility issues, this is a great place to start because that's going to provide us that insight that we may not get from Western medicine. And so
Hmm.
this is really important. It's really closing the gap in what we have been missing for years.
Hmm. And I think one thing too that I find very, very fascinating is that a lot of women find these things like painful periods or maybe infertility. We almost think that they're like normal because we don't know how to deal with it, or we just think that that's part of being a woman and that's just part of what it
Hmm.
is. And what people don't realize is it's actually a sign of an abnormality. But when you go to the doctor, they might just prescribe you birth control. So you still don't know after that doctor's appointment what is wrong. You're just prescribed a
Hmm.
band aid. And for some people, that's a fantastic tactic. There's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with it. But for others,
Hmm.
they might just want the education. They might just be like, I just don't know what's wrong. And I've been given a treatment plan, but I still don't know what the root cause with it is. So I'm
Hmm.
still not sure how to take care of my body.
Exactly. No, exactly. And I hear that so often too, especially as women, right? We don't really get enough education around our cycles, or we don't get enough education around why our moods are all over the place. Like we don't are we're not provided that education, and that's another missing piece too. And so when we do have like these painful periods or we're stuck in bed because we feel so sick because our periods are making us feel that way, or like we just honestly we eat some food and we feel horrible too after that, and we are just told like, oh, like you can just take birth control, or
Right.
oh, you can just take this pill, and for short-term purposes, yeah, it may be great because it gets rid of the painful periods, right? And it gets rid of helps you get regulated or whatnot. But when you get off of that birth control or when you decide to come off, what happens then, right? Like all the symptoms come back and you're at the same point you started and you're like, what is going on? So those are
Hmm.
the women who usually come to me, right? They have tried everything. They have been on birth control. They want to get off birth control. They have gotten off birth control and all these issues that they had before going on birth control, they come back. And sometimes they come back with a vengeance.
Yeah.
And they're just like so lost for words because they're like, I thought this was fixing my hormones, but is really just kind of silencing them. And
Hmm.
so that is where like the nutrition can be so helpful, and setting up solid foundations is even greater, right? Because we're really focusing on our lifestyle and we're giving our body what it needs.
Hmm. Well, Jasmine, we are almost out of time, but if people are listening and they want to get started, you do have a free guide to help them kind of kick things off. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I am going to offer you guys a free guide. So it's going to be all about drainage pathways. So what's nice about the drainage pathways is that's part of the detoxification phase. So it's all about reducing your toxin burden by supporting that natural detoxification system. What's nice too about this guide is we actually provided a checklist. So you can go through this checklist. It's a bunch of symptoms, it's asking you questions, and you can kind of tally and see if you need drainage pathway support or if you need some extra natural detoxification support. And if you do, it's going to provide you some things to start doing right away. Yeah, I wanted to offer that to you guys because, this is just really important. And then, of course, like you guys can also find me on Instagram at Organically Glow. And that is where I really provide a lot of education. I'm all about education. So I want to empower women to really know that they have control over their bodies and they can start implementing these small changes in their day to day and they can get results.
Hmm. I think those are fantastic resources for people who want to get started. And we will be sure to link your website and social media in the show notes so everyone can connect with you to learn more. But Jasmine, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much, Erica. It was so nice speaking with you today. And thank you for allowing me to speak to your listeners. This was amazing.